Hello and welcome to this IHSA Bass Fishing Sectional Manager's presentation. My name is Kurt Gibson. I'm the Associate Executive Director with the Illinois High School Association, and I oversee the bass fishing program here at IHSA. And I wanted to first thank all of you for your service to the association and its member schools by serving as a bass fishing manager this season. In previous years, we would gather all the managers together in a virtual meeting, typically the first week of April, and go over what we're going to cover in this presentation today. But given that Easter falls at the end of the first week of April, and not knowing when a number of schools that are hosting this year will be on spring break, we decided to take this approach where we'll do this presentation in advance. We'll send it to everyone. You'll have some time to look at it at your leisure. And then I'm going to make myself available early in the week of Easter for anyone who has any questions or follow-ups or wondering if you heard something correctly. And we'll try to navigate things that way. Certainly, I'll be sharing with you a link to that meeting as we get closer to that date. But for those of you who have served in the past, I wanted to give you a little sense of why we're trying to do things a little bit differently this year. We hope that this is an informative presentation. We want to be thorough. I also want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I'm going to try not to rush through things. So again, thank you for being available to view this in advance. Let's talk about a few things in regard to the tournament. As a reminder, the sectional tournament will be on Thursday, May 4th, and that rain date will be Monday, May 8th, but we're thinking positively that Thursday, May 4th will be a day when we can get our bass fishing sectional tournaments conducted. On the right-hand side of the screen here, you see probably the most important pre-tournament item you'll be asked to complete, and that's your sectional tournament information sheet. Now, this sample you see here is obviously from last year, and by the time you watch this presentation, regardless of when that may be, you should already have a first draft of your sectional tournament information sheet for this year. You would have received that from Emma Karstens. Emma works with me with the bass fishing program, and so on your sectional tournament information sheet, there will be, like you see here, some areas that are highlighted. And it's these highlighted areas where we need you to do a little bit of work. Ultimately, our office will complete a final version for your sectional. We'll send that to you. We'll get it posted online. We'll ask you to send a copy to the schools assigned to your sectional. But it's these areas that will be highlighted on the first draft form that will be sent to you or have been sent to you that will ask you to do some work on trying to get us some answers. And you can email those back to those answers to these letters or these highlighted areas if you want to. The document should be editable, but if it's not, if it's in a PDF format, just emailing Emma will get the job done. And then, like I said, we'll make final edits and corrections, and you'll be set to go. But this document gives the competing schools really the pertinent information they need for the sectional tournament. As a reminder, some things that will also be coming to you from our office, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about those later, will be all and any permits you might need, as well as certificates of insurance. There'll be some documents for qualifiers, and we'll talk a little bit about DNR involvement as well. I also want to point out that the page you see here on the right-hand side of this slide comes directly from the Bass Fishing Managers School and Managers Manual. That link we'll see on the next slide where you can find that on the IHSA website. But this is a really good one-stop shop, very, I think, visually appealing list of items that as sectional manager you want to familiarize yourself with and get completed during the lead up, the day of, and then post tournament. like I said, that's in the manual. I'm going to cover some high points from this list in the rest of this presentation. But that's something you'll want to familiarize yourself with as you get ready for your tournament. So we first see here a link from the bass fishing page at ihsa.org where you can find the manual. You can see that it's there on the bass fishing page, center column under the resources heading. I would encourage you to look at that. I'd even encourage you to print it out because there's some documents in there that you'll want to have access to. But one thing you want to be also working on pre-tournament as you're sending information to the competing schools is always reminding schools that teams need to turn in their roster no later than the day of the sectional. If you want to ask for them earlier, you certainly can. I think that's probably a good practice, asking the schools to email those to you in advance. But if they don't, as long as they give them to you the day of, that's fine. A school can enter, they have to turn in one roster per boat. The rosters need to have an administrator signature. I think it says principal signature on the actual form, but you can accept a form that's signed by the athletic director or principal. And that's really the key thing that I would also emphasize to the schools, because oftentimes I hear stories or I get panic calls from managers, such and such a school's got their roster, but it's not signed by an administrator. So the more you can do to remind folks of that in advance, the better. Remember that a student's name can only appear on one roster. So it would behoove you as you're looking at those, when a school gives you their likely two rosters, because most schools enter two boats, just make sure that a student's only listed once. They can't be listed on both rosters. You want to make sure that you've appointed a tournament committee, and the tournament committee's main function is to review any appeals that come in during the tournament, meaning that there are violations of the terms and conditions. And there's information on how to appoint a tournament committee in the terms and conditions. But you'd want to rely on some people that maybe are experienced coaches. You want to have, I think, an administrator. Certainly if something happens and one of the schools who's on your committee is involved in a situation, you'll ask that school to, step aside from any deliberations that the committee needs to make. You'll want to make sure that if there are site condition, like there's problem with the lake, or there's a concern with the lake, or a launch, or whatever, a ramp, that you're staying in touch with me so we can work through whatever that situation might be. Inside the manual are copies of the boat safety check form, as well as the appeals form. But then, as you see here lastly on this slide, you're going to want to develop an emergency evacuation plan in the event weather rears its head on the day of the sectional, and you do need to clear the lake. We're going to talk a little bit about that here coming up. So again, just thinking about some things pre-tournament wise, April 28th is going to be a key date for you to mark on your calendar. By that date, you should have, first of all, received your awards. They'll be likely coming directly from our supplier, A&M Products. But by April 28th, those should be at your school. If they have not arrived by the time you receive your mail on the 28th, please contact us. Reach out to Emma, and we'll search to see where those are. Sometimes they've been at the school for a while. They're signed off on by somebody, and they've just been put in the back room, and there's just somebody forgot to let somebody in the office know that they had arrived. Also, by the 28th, a number of you will receive a banner. You see one here on the right-hand side of this screen that we'd ask you to hang at the launch area, the weigh-in area, just to spruce up the space. Also gives us a chance to recognize the activity and possibly some sponsors. Over the years, we've had a few of the banners not come back to us, so we may not, if you're not going to receive a banner, our office will be in touch so you're not on the lookout for it. We'll let you know that well in advance. Sometimes a sectional location needs weigh-in bags for weigh-ins, and if you need some, we'd ask that you let us know, and if you need some, we will certainly provide those for your sectional. And then, as I've mentioned, all the permits and certificates of insurance that you would need will be sent to you in advance. I'd ask that you keep those. Close at hand and take them with you out to the sectional the day of in case anyone asks about those. We will also be in touch and have already been in touch with the Department of Natural Resources, and many times they will send out staff to help with boat checks. We've been fortunate over the years to have a great relationship with DNR. I know some of you are watching this presentation are old hosts for us, old in the sense of you've done it for a number of years and you've made that connection. If some of our newer hosts need some additional help, reach out to me and we'll provide whatever support we can as you need it. Maybe you've got people already lined up to check things off on the boat checklist. No worries. You aren't required to use DNR staff to do that. It's just they like to be involved as well. Gives them a chance to stay in front of the anglers and talk safety. So it's, like I said, it's been a good partnership over the years. Now, on the day of, probably the biggest thing to do is make sure that you've got cell phone numbers for all coaches and boat captains. It's important to remind each boat what the end of the day looks like, where they need to be, and when they need to be. Make sure you review for them what the penalty for returning late to the weigh-in area is. But mostly you need those numbers in case you've got to implement or institute or put into use your emergency evacuation plan. Every body of water is going to be different. So I think the first thing you need to decide is, in the event weather rears its head, will there be places other than the main launch area where we will let schools sort of dock their boat if they have to clear our lake or river? Make sure if that's going to be the case, you communicate that to the schools in advance. Maybe you've got a map that you can share with them. But number two, you need to make sure that you've got staff that can get out to those other locations to make sure you can keep track of who's off the water when you tell them they've got to get off the water. And as it says here, you're going to want to stay abreast and ahead of the weather. I know at the state finals, when we get in situations where we've got to clear the lake, we're probably 30 minutes ahead of when the weather's coming. We don't wait for the first bolt of lightning, or we don't wait for the wind to kick up. If we know a storm's coming, we want to make sure that folks have enough time to get to a safe harbor and get out of harm's way, if you will. So we ask you to use the same kind of judgment in the event weather begins to rear its head at your sectional tournament. And then finally, the terms and conditions say that on the day of the sectional, as manager, you have the ability to set up the window of time for fishing. And you can set up that window as short as 5 hours if a manager wanted to, or as long as 8 hours. Most people choose 8 hours. But a day is considered official if half of the shortest amount of time that you could fish for has been fished. So in other words, 5 hours is the least amount of time a manager could set up for a sectional fishing tournament. Half of 5 hours is 2.5 hours. So if fishing occurs for 2.5 hours on the day of your sectional, then the sectional tournament is complete. Fish caught that day will determine winners and qualifiers and all those types of things for the state finals. It's important to remind your competitors of that before they take off. Additionally, on the day of the tournament, if there are going to be any off-limit areas or if there are any kind of boating or water restrictions, remind schools about that. That kind of information is also going to be on the sectional information sheet, but it's never bad to offer an in-person reminder. Please remind the competing schools that they're limited to only having their two, if they enter 2 boats, those are the only 2 boats their school can put in the water on that day. Because a roster could have 4 anglers listed on it, talk to them, talk to the teams and the schools about where and how you want those substitutions to occur. Typically, we would say require the boat to come into the main launch area, make sure tournament staff, somebody's there to make sure that that exchange goes cleanly and that all that are stepping onto the boats are students and they're properly equipped with life jacket and goggles. And then you're probably also going to want to remind folks, if there is some kind of an issue, what that appeals process looks like. And it's probably important to remind folks that if something is going to be appealed, if someone is going to say, hey, such and such a school broke the terms and conditions, that appeal needs to be turned into you, the manager, no later than the end of weigh-ins. If weigh-ins, the last weigh-in has occurred and that is official, that's when you can no longer accept an appeal from a competing school. Now, once the tournament is over and weigh-ins have been completed, you'll want to distribute the awards. As I mentioned, those should be in your possession by the 28th of April. You will be receiving, and that's why this next bullet point is in red. We will be sending all managers 4 envelopes. And they'll be labeled first place team, second place team, third place team, and fourth place team. The fourth place team from each sectional is the alternate team. The qualifying envelopes have information for the qualifying teams, information they need to know to help them prepare for the state finals in Carlisle. And it also gives them a deadline to inform them if you know you can't participate like that, you need to notify the IHSA office by this date and time so that our office can then reach out to the alternate team to see if they're able to participate. And so the alternate letter or the alternate envelope sort of lays out that process. It gives them a little bit of information to think about, but it really sets the deadline and tells them how our office will contact them if an opportunity has presented itself for the alternate to participate at the state finals. You'll be able to post results from the tournament online, and the information you'll need to go into the school center and complete what amounts to a winner's report will be sent to you. We'd ask that all the results are listed in pounds and ounces. And as you see here, when you tell us who caught the big bass at the sectional tournament, make sure to list the student's name, the school the angler represents, as well as the weight of that fish. And then we would ask that you send back to us, and you may have to make a copy, or if you have a banner that you're going to send back to us, you can put it in with that mailing. But we like all the rosters. We've been trying to track the participation levels, and it's helped us as we get ready to embark on adding a regional round to the tournament. So having a real clear idea of the number of participants is helpful not only for the program down the road, if you will, but it also helps our office in preparing for the state finals, because we use that information to build our scoring for the state finals, our program, and other important documents that we use during that tournament week. Over the past few years, mostly due to the COVID years, we've encouraged managers to try to stream your weigh-ins, but it's just an encouragement. It's not a requirement. You can do it as simply as finding someone to, jump on Twitter Live or Facebook Live and streaming from their phone. I know sometimes at these areas the Wi-Fi reception is not very strong, so it's tough to do. We totally get it. But if you've got someone who's interested in technology, we would encourage you to the extent possible to look into streaming your weigh-ins. If you do, shoot me an email and we'll help promote where people can go to watch the weigh-in for your particular sectional. But again, this is just more of a encouragement, maybe another way to get somebody involved, but it is not a requirement in any, way, shape, or form. So thanks again for viewing this presentation. Tried to hit some high points. You will be receiving a link from either Emma or myself on Monday, April 3rd, to let you jump into a virtual meeting if you have questions. I'm going to make myself available from 9 to 10 a.m. on Tuesday, April 4th. If you don't have any questions about anything, there's not going to be any formal presentation. You can just, you don't have to join or anything. But if you do have some questions, or you want to hear, if somebody else has questions, I hadn't thought about that, and whatever, feel free to jump in and join me. I'm going to make myself available, but given that it's Easter week and I'm thinking that there'll be a number of schools on spring break, I didn't want to take anybody off a spring break trip to sit in on a bass fishing meeting if they really didn't have any questions. So thanks again. Appreciate your help and assistance. We look forward to working with you. Even if you can't make or jump in or have questions on April 4th, please know you can reach out to me at any time. We want your event to be successful. It's our charge to do what we can to provide the supports necessary so that you can be successful. So thanks again and have a great day.